You might be wondering, what is Yeti or why is Yeti here?
As far as film, no one really thinks, oh, Atlanta for a film community. But we've got a really large community, a lot of talented artists, so we think that it's time people, at least on a national or international level, know we exist.
I'm not leaving here till you heal me! It's mine, and I want it!
No one knows quite what goes on in this sick and twisted loon's puffy head.
She's so high, she'll drive you right out of your mind.
Nick BB and Aggie Nonky, the chunky donkey.
We've all been in the festivals. We've all had our work online. We've shown it all over the Southeast. What do you do from there other than move to LA or New York? And Frank, David, and I decided that we would start a collective called Yeti that the sole purpose was to help turn the spotlight onto Atlanta as a scene.
You might be wondering, what is Yeti or why is Yeti here? The real question is, why are you here?
We just started talking to each other and doing our own screenings. And next thing we know, we have like 150, 200 people who are all involved, the directors, cameramen, actors, lighting, grip, anything.
Reagan and Bush, then Reagan and Bush, then Bush, then Clinton, then Bush again. I never thought I would ever see the day when African people would say they Republican.
The only way we're gonna make our productions better and actually make the scene better is just to hook each other up, which seems so obvious, but if you have ever played in a band or you ever been in any sort of art scene, you will see a lot of people just basically talking crap behind each other's back. Whereas here, we just spread the words about each other's film. I think so far over 7,000 people have downloaded the film. So in a sense, I've reached more people with this film than any other thing that I've ever done in my life, simply by putting it online.
Talent always has to be there, first of all. But if the talent's there, you know, this whole digital revolution has allowed people that don't have a lot of money to spend on film processing and things like that to learn the craft and then, you know, get good enough to have big budgets.
Girl, I must warn you, I sense something strange in my mind. Yo, situation is let's cure it 'cause we're running out of time.
We don't want it to be gimmicky, you know, each one where it's like, okay, here's the challenge, it's time. And for the most part, it's more like, my analogy was like a haiku poem. You know, it almost frees you creatively by constraining, like setting boundaries, then makes you think in a different way.
I asked, and you asked on another board about the body response to different water temperatures and time. Am I looking for floating body, submerged body, etc.? Only because it would help me do my job better.
I created a piece called Search and Rescue, which was for an event that was all found footage. I had somehow got all of this footage of people being baptized, and one of the actors that I was paired with found dialogue from a search and rescue board explaining what it's like to do search and rescue and pull people from the water. It was really just like this eerie piece. Well, we matched it to the baptisms, and it became this total piece on like renewal and rebirth.
I stopped myself from thinking about what the drowned person went through while in the process of drowning, or what the family is going through while we're trying to find their loved one, who we have pretty well narrowed down to a body recovery.
You can stay here work a job, part-time, full-time, whatever, but you can still live without killing yourself, and then make your art that you basically, it's coming out of your heart and it's coming out of your own pocket. So you can make art that's uncompromised.
Nick with BB, naggy gnocchi. To the chunky gnocchi.
My film just takes one chapter out of the book that deals with love, because at the time it's when I met my fiance, and it just really spoke to me, and it just basically takes the simplest thing, that falling in love is the ultimate act of revolution.
Love, as most of us know it today, is a carefully prescribed and preordained ritual, something that happens on Friday nights in expensive movie theaters and restaurants, something that fills the pockets of shareholders in the entertainment industries without preventing workers from showing up to the office on time.
Atlanta is going to blow up. I mean, it's just going to take somebody just to say, wow, look at this, and all the filmmakers here are going to get national recognition.
It was Jordan that set it off.
Yes, the rhythm's the rebel. Without a pause, I'm lowering my level.
I want soldiers who walk restless and burn when they breathe.
A lot of people are in this branded entertainment and content space now, and you hear a lot of agencies and a lot of clients sort of talk about getting into it more and more. We want to be viewed more as legitimate program people, as opposed to sort of sponsorship and buying time and doing that.
I'm knocking your lights out. I'm taking you right out.
People have so many different options in terms of mediums, and it's getting harder and harder to attract a bigger audience. It's getting harder to get your message out there. People are more distracted. And that simple fact has sort of forced agencies and brands and clients to sort of experiment more.
It's certainly one of the biggest fairy tales this race has ever produced. A man that really was only given a 20% chance of living because of cancer is now tearing the field apart in the Tour de France, and it's a long time since we've seen a performance like this.
We followed Lance Armstrong and the U.S. cycling team around Europe for about 3 to 4 weeks.
Just constantly seeing if it's going to continue to work. I mean, to me, that's fascinating that we have this template, and we can just continue to run it over and over and over again, and train hard and make sacrifices, and you know, just in the name of sport, just to try and win the biggest and the best bike race in the world year after year after year.
So we rode with them in the car, in the team car, had cameras there, sort of a training camp atmosphere. Spent the month with them, and then cut it together into an hour-long show that ran on CBS and the Outdoor Life Network. It was actually pretty successful in the cycling world. The numbers were small in terms of the units we moved for the DVD, but for cycling they were pretty good.
There's kind of like a certain rhythm to the race. You know, everybody attacks in the beginning, kind of gets settled in. Maybe a small group of riders goes away, and everybody else kind of settles down. And then it's an opportunity to figure out, you know, is it going to get colder? Is it going to get warmer? Is it going to keep raining? So you'll see a lot of guys going back to the car.
The radio's not working so hard.
Sometimes one guy from a team will go around and kind of collect clothing from certain guys, and then go back to the car and drop it all off, and then come back with some food. And then kind of it's also an opportunity to take a piss if you feel like you have to.
When we first started out, people looked at us like, you're doing a project for Nike? What do you mean you're doing production or you're doing programming? We just give us a check and we'll do a sponsorship thing, and we'd love to have your money, but you guys don't know programming. And so the door was sort of open, but not really for a long time. And then when the economics of the industry changed, and TiVo came on, and the audiences were sort of shrinking, and cost of production was going up, the industry in general became very open to experimenting. So all of a sudden, all the doors were open, and everyone wanted to talk to us.
I want soldiers who walk restless and burn when they breathe, who go to war like a predator that's anxious to feed, gladiators with battle scars who play eager to bleed,
who ball till skin peels from their elbows and knees. Troopers who keep honor alongside skill and speed and see glory that resonates.
You spend a lot of time developing the longer format stuff. We're working 1, 2, sometimes 3 years out. You spend a lot of time thinking about things and pitching things and trying to sell things. Again, and if those stars don't line up, those planets don't line up, they're not going to happen. So you can literally, I mean, we've spent 2, 3 years working on projects that have died. People want to do that next Super Bowl ad. They want to do the great 30 or 60-second ad that wins a gold lion at Cannes. That's what we're set up and built around historically, and that's where people get raises and bonuses and headhunters call them, so everyone's focused on that. It takes a lot to shift people's minds, to get them to think, you know, everyone says outside the box, whatever you want to call it, but get them to think about other options that are out there.
I went to a school where a lot of kids had newest pairs of sneakers. I didn't have any money for them, so when I got my working papers, I just went ape shit.
I don't know if it's an addiction. I got 1,400 pair of sneakers. Does that mean I'm an addict?
One of the most difficult things to sort of consider about these types of things, about entertainment things, is how do you quantify the results? How do you know if they're successful or not successful? You know, is it by a rating? Is it by sales? Is it by whatever? And I think they're a combination of things. I think sometimes it's, first and foremost, it's audience reaction. You know, did people see it? And did they like it?
They must have forgot who I really am. When I started, I was ruthless.
Who wanna get knocked out? Who wanna fight Roy Jones? Who wanna be next? I'm knocking your lights out. I'm taking you right out.
People seem to have forgot that that was the person that I was. That's the person I still am.
They say that TV and film and stuff like the music industry is a hit business. So you can do all your homework and do all your studying and sort of lay out the formulas and still sort of do everything by the book. And it's sometimes they'll click and sometimes they won't. And that's similar to advertising, I think, too. You never really know.
Now I'm in a situation where I know within a 12-hour period I'm bound to get hit. So I'm either going to deal with it now, face your fear and get it over with.
I honestly think no one really knows what's going to happen. I think a lot of people are sort of saying things are changing. We see them changing. It's no longer the way it was. It's not going to continue to be the way it's always been. So why don't we try some different stuff and see what works?
It is a presentation of music to paintings. Because these are surrealist paintings and they have a lot of detail and a lot of information, when I write the music for them, it's sort of like composing for a little mini movie. And each painting has its own story to tell. And I take the viewer through the painting with the music.
The pre-recorded elements are some of the bed tracks and of course the DVD imagery, and then the live elements is everything that's Nash playing live, whether it's with the mandolin or with the violin, to all the paintings. I think I've put Nash in 3 or 4 paintings now, just because we've been friends, and besides he looks so weird. This is perfect for my imagery. And the bandages, and no, he's not horribly disfigured by a fire. No, there's nothing like that.
No, I'm not taking off the bandages. Kiss took off their makeup and they just put it all back on again, didn't they? I sit down and look at it and I start to describe what I'm seeing, and Rob chuckles away because he starts going, oh, I didn't think of that idea. But that's the whole point of art, and appreciating and enjoying art is that it's everybody's interpretation.
I have a little logo I put in all my paintings. It's a B-25 bomber. I've always loved aviation. And When I originally conceived of the show, I wanted to use that aircraft as a vehicle to travel from one painting to the next. The only trouble with that, it got incredibly confusing for the viewer to watch, because all of a sudden there's just all this imagery, and people were having a hard time putting it together. A lot of what people seem to enjoy about my work is that it changes. They'll come back, you know, see it second, third, fourth time, and every time they come back, they'll see something else. People can look at things in a different way, a negative, positive, ink spot type of situation, and it can become very clear. So each painting can become personal, and it can change as you look at it. The Yacht Club, it's pretty basic. It's really daylight daydreams of sailors. And they're in a room, and everyone has either closed eyes or opaque glasses, and they're dreaming. Some of the characters even look similar in the boats. And originally it was done for a doctor friend of mine, and he was an oral surgeon, and I wanted to put something personal in for him, so I put in a couple of surgical lamps.
When I wrote the piece of music for Le Vivres, which is one of Rob's paintings, well, I wanted to convey English village with something German. So I put together Percy Granger's In an English Country Garden with Beethoven's Ode to Joy. And ironically, they work together. But if you don't know Percy Granger and you don't know Beethoven, you won't know how to put them together. We couldn't have done this kind of show 10 years ago. Everything about this is customized. Even the easels and the lighting are customized. We make an art gallery out of a grand old Victorian hall like this, and then in the middle of that art gallery put a stage and a live performer and a video projection screen. It's a one-of-a-kind concept.
Come in here now after all these years and see all these different paintings together. It's exciting. I learn from it because I go back to what I was doing before and I look, oh, I did that. That's how I did that. Or I wouldn't do that again that way. There's all sorts of different emotions go through my mind, and it's just wonderful to see it after all these years, all this work together.
Remember when you walked among men.
You have people remembering what it was like being Jewish in the Bronx in the 30s or Italian in Queens in the 50s. So it's this bottom-up history of life as it's lived by everyday people. Our motto is listening is an act of love, and that's what we found over and over and over again.
Society over a cliff. Fantastically democratic technology can make a small amount of people a lot of money.
Grand Central Terminal is sort of the people's cathedral here in New York. This is a place that everybody passes by. I mean, you've got every kind of person, from business person to homeless person. It's a constant flow of people. And we wanted to create this sort of magical space.
Something that you took from your parents, either in terms of values or skills.
What I would like to see most.
My name is Harold Slappy. I am 91 years of age. I've lived here all of my life.
Hi, I'm Ann Blackman, and I'm married to this handsome man sitting across from me.
So this is the booth. It's sort of, there's an exterior shell on top of an interior soundproof metal box. And we wanted the exterior shell to kind of pop out and draw people's eyes to this thing. Again, in the middle of Grand Central Terminal. And it's got this very sort of alive outside, and on the inside we try and make it very cozy so that people are comfortable and feel good about talking to one another.
My name is Ed Blakesley, and the date is February 18, 2004. We're in Grand Central Terminal, and I'm being interviewed by my granddaughter.
You come to the booth with anybody you want, your grandmother, your grandfather, a sister, a brother, a friend, the person who works in the local coffee shop, and we train you for a couple of minutes on how to do an oral history. Then we take you into the booth and you sit in the booth with your grandmother, your grandfather for 40 minutes.
Just pretend all this stuff isn't here and it's just like asking your grandpa some questions. That's the most important part. It's just sort of relaxing and having a nice conversation.
At the end of the 40 minutes, you walk away with a CD and you leave one with us, and with your permission, it goes to the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress and becomes part of an oral history of America.
Do you remember when you walked among men?
It's very important in the history books to have the stories of, the statesmen and the politicians, and we certainly have the stories of celebrities that we're hit with all day, every day. But the stories of ordinary people are equally important, and I think they're equally interesting.
I think a lot of people that come in don't think that they have anything to share, and after 40 minutes you realize that their life has been unbelievable.
What was your childhood like?
It was an ordinary childhood, Bridget. I remember being delighted with getting as a Christmas present, a fire engine I had wanted, and I pedaled that thing back and forth in the little front yard of our Brooklyn house. I enjoyed it. I'm also happy to see that Bridget is such a good interviewer.
Thanks, Grandpa.
My name's Elizabeth Bernstein, and this is my grandmother, Annette. And we're here today because she's my only remaining grandparent, and I really want to know more about our family history. I wish I had done the same with other grandparents.
We charge $10 a session, and it costs us about $100 a session. But we're committed to making sure that everybody can participate in this, no matter what their economic abilities are.
Third date, he said to me, when I get a job, we'll get married. I want to get married with you.
Was that his proposal?
That was more or less his proposal.
Was there ever a on the knee?
No.
I learned a lot about my mother's life that I hadn't known, and her feelings and her life in terms of what she might have done had she done things differently, which I had never talked to her about before, and her experiences as a child, things I had not heard before, and it was quite eye-opening to getting to know my mom a little bit in a different way.
People are very satisfied when they come out. They feel like they've contributed to history, but also had a shared experience with their partner.
I learned a lot about myself talking about it. I went back a lot over my adult past, and there were things that I said that I know were true, but I hadn't really thought about them before, and it was pretty interesting. It really was. It made me think differently about a lot of things in my life.
We were going to build 7 to 10 of these big booths in large cities across the country, and we're going to have 3 mobile booths that travel from small town to small town collecting stories. And then we're going to have a series of annexes in libraries that are just sort of very simple setups, and also mobile kits that people can order if you have a family member who is in hospice or is dying and can't get to a booth. So we have big dreams. We hope to do at least 250,000 interviews over the next 10 years.